right, friends, we are back. Your favorite podcast show of the week. It is Location Weekly. It's episode number 563, and we are recording on April the 5th. How are you doing, Aubriana? What's new?
I'm doing good, gearing up for spring break next week with my kids. So taking a road trip. So that should be fun. Just all the preparation that goes into it is always a lot, but looking forward to that and some warmer weather. And yeah, I'm doing good. How are you doing? Like we were talking about baseball season starting soon.
That's exciting, yeah. So, I guess opening weekend coming up here at the end of this week. So, I'm looking forward to that. And then Blue Jays, my Blue Jays are back at home in Toronto and get to start and play a full season in their own stadium. So that's new because we didn't have that last year. So yeah, with full capacity too. So it's completely sold out. Looking forward to that. And spring's definitely here. I think our next, I don't know, 2 weeks of weather forecast, it's relatively warm, a lot of rain, which is normal for this time of year. But it's getting warmer. It's getting spring-like. Flowers are popping up, so it's good.
Yes, lots to look forward to. I'm ready for the warmth for sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, we've got four stories as usual to walk you through today, and I'll let Aubriana start us off.
Yes, we do. So let's start off with a auto story. Volvo is partnering up with Starbucks, and they are going to be installing their electric vehicle charging stations at Starbucks stores. So this is a pilot that they're testing out. They're going to install up to 60 different charge points. They're DC fast chargers at around 15 Starbucks stores between Denver and Seattle. And then they're going to monitor the stations and, potentially determine if they're going to expand this program. But the plan's calling for a charging location every 100 miles. And they're going to start doing this installation this summer, completed by year's end. I think this is great for a lot of different reasons. One, we're seeing more and more electric vehicles, and there just needs to be more charging stations, and it typically needs to be somewhere that you're okay hanging out for a little bit. And what better place than a Starbucks or a coffee shop? So I like this story a lot also because I think it's driving business to Starbucks, obviously. So I think it's a good partnership for them. And the other part is I'm curious, are these charging stations only for Volvos, or will they work for other electric vehicles? The story did not specify in those details, so I'll have to kind of dig into that a little bit more. But I think from Volvo's perspective, it's great because they are showing that they're putting skin in the game as well, and like making sure that there are these charging stations, throughout this area and this driving path. So I think that's really interesting. And I think there should be more of this. I think this is a great opportunity for any brand really to kind of sponsor these charging stations and put them in locations where people enjoy spending time. You think of like resorts or parks or anywhere that people might want to stop and have that, the ability to do that, I think is a great opportunity. So I think this makes a lot of sense. We're seeing more and more of this continue to expand with more, I would say, like green initiatives. So, that debate can be for another time. But yeah, what do you think?
I love it. I think it's a great partnership. I think, as you said, it's a great way to, sort of from a Starbucks point of view, to drive, traffic, potentially new traffic, to some of these locations along these routes. I think from a Volvo point of view, it's really smart as well. They've recently announced an all-electric model in their lineup called the C40 Recharge, and so they're doing a lot to sort of drive promotion and adoption of that vehicle. Kind of sidebar story. They also launched an ad campaign around that, which is really, really cool. So what they did they basically created a VR experience where it's initiated by you pointing your camera on your phone to the actual plug socket on the car. and then from there you're taken into a full-on, through the wires, VR experience about the car and the model, and information, videos, and all sorts of things about it to kind of drive that. So they're kind of really putting the focus on, that, the plug being, the initiator of the, of the ad campaign around this. So I think it's really smart. It's really exciting. Up here in Canada as well, just in a similar thing, Tim Hortons, competition to Starbucks up here, lots of locations, has just announced that they're launching in partnership with a company called Turn On Green, a bunch of electric charging stations at some of their locations as well. So I think there's sort of an emerging trend here. And for me, it kind of brings me back. It's kind of, I think, many years ago, just before I started the LBMA, I had a company that was in the Wi-Fi space. And so we would go in, and these were still in the days of transitioning from where, if you went into a restaurant chain or a Starbucks or something like that, you had to pay for Wi-Fi in those days, like Boingo and things like that. And so we had built this model where you get free Wi-Fi, but it was all sponsored by brands and so on. And it's kind of a similar thing, right? It's, hey, we're bringing you a service that you want as a consumer, in this case, vehicle charging, but it's brought to you and sponsored by, Volvo or Starbucks or whoever. So I think it's really interesting, and I think we're going to see a lot more of these types of partnerships.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, on to our second story. So this one's just an announcement about a capital raise. So there's a Dutch startup company called ParkBee. That's one word with BEE. And so they've raised 30 million euros to fund their platform, which is all about finding parking spaces and booking those spots through a mobile app platform. The investment round was led by a company called Koolin Industries, which is a Netherlands-based clean energy investor. Yeah, I think it's it's kind of an interesting thing. They call themselves Europe's top digital car parking platform, and it's all about helping consumers find off-street parking options and helping cities and landlords better utilize their urban spaces. So it's about space optimization and making a way for people to find that. Obviously, they're not the only platform out there. We've talked about others like this, but I think $33 million to grow this and promote this across Europe is a lot of money. So, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. We've been seeing some new movement in the parking industry. I was just remembering that Cameron Clayton, who was former CEO over at Weather Company, just joined the Easy Park group, which has Park Mobile is one of their brands. So there's definitely a lot that's like happening in this industry, and there's more and more. And I think about this a lot because here, obviously in New York, when I'm driving like to the train station or really anywhere up here, you're paying for parking, and there's a lot of different apps, and there's the ability for consolidation. And then there's a lot of people who pay for their monthly, parking spaces, but so many people are working remotely or only going in so many days. So I think the ability to kind of share that pass or, rent those spaces out when they're not in use, there's definitely an economy there. So I think this is like it's an interesting take on the parking space, but I think that there's like a lot there that can be done. So keep an eye on that. Yeah. Okay, so let's go to hair care. This is pretty interesting, and I really like this story. Brooklyn-based company called Prose. And if you haven't heard of Prose Beauty, it's a beauty brand focused on hair care, and it leverages data and technology. So there'll be like a digital consultation that happens with the consumer, and the consumer, puts their information in about where they live and lots of other data points. And then it leverages machine learning to create these made to order hair care products. So they're very unique and specific to your hair type, all of the different factors that you put in. So it's teaming up now. Prose is teaming up with a climate technology company that's called BreezoMeter. And this is collecting data about the local pollution levels that could potentially impact, our hair and our scalp and our skin, all those things, because it is an extension of our body. So BreezoMeter's technology, it has like an air quality index. It's using Apple's weather app And then obviously it leans on AI and machine learning to collect and analyze all this data from more than 49,000 different sensors around the world. So now the online consultation will take into consideration this BreezoMeter data, like smoke exposure, air pollution, any location environmental factors. So if you're, in Atlanta or the South right now, it's like taking into consideration maybe all the pollen that's in the air, or the humidity. And then, maybe it's like smog in other places and different things like that. So it factors in weather, workout habits, stress levels, diet, scalp condition, all of those different things, which means apparently you can have more than 79 trillion possible combinations that are available when you're creating these personalized formulas. So very personalized. And then, it has like this feedback loop technology. It's optimizing, improving as they relate to others with similar, results and findings and data. So I love this. I love the tailor and bespoke approach, but also I love that it's so rooted in the data, and using technology for something that, most people, yes, we think about technology when we think about hair care or makeup or things like that, but not necessarily in this aspect. So I love that this is so just tailored specifically to you. And so I'm really like interested in trying this now. And but I just think that this is such a great wave of things that are happening, and I expect us to see a lot more. We're seeing a lot of these vitamin companies like creating these specific blends for you based on your data that you input. And I think we're going to see this continue, this trend continue upward as we encompass more data, more technology, and then how do we apply that here? So I love it. Thoughts?
Yeah, very interesting. I mean, I'm always a fan of anything that's about, aggregating, combining data sets to, get more personalized or more accurate, around something that can be helpful. I mean, you see a lot of this type of thing in, sort of personalized workouts and fitness, type of applications. Obviously, I've not seen anything specifically in the hair space, but I think it's interesting. Maybe I'm not the right target audience necessarily. I just, get my head and shoulders and I'm good to go. But, it's, I think for a lot of people though, and I would guess a lot of women in particular, this could be quite useful and helpful. The one thing that really made me smile is as I was reading the story about this, I'll just go to the quote here from the woman at Prose says, "We're thrilled to be able to partner with BreezoMeter to utilize their extensive data on geo-aggressors." Never heard that term before, geo-aggressors, but I like it. I think it's really cool, and I think it's a great way to kind of think about, how does climate and environment and things around us impact us, our bodies, and and what we need to do to take better care of ourselves. So I think this is really interesting use of location data. Yeah, I mean, and you said these guys are based in Brooklyn, so you're there. Maybe you got to get in with this and try it out.
I know, I'm in.
Alrighty, on to our final story. So there's a digital signage company called CrownTV, and they have released a new app that will allow retailers and businesses to display NFTs on digital displays in their retail spaces. So that's kind of interesting. And so the way the app works, it's integrated with CrownTV's digital signage solution. And gives access to any NFTs that are available on something called the OpenSea NFT marketplace. So basically, you've got signage in your stores, and then you can acquire NFTs from this marketplace that you can then display, be it artwork or what have you. Yeah, so it could be photography, it could be videos, it could be music, whatever sort of format the NFT is in. That you're getting from this marketplace, and then a way to sort of access it through this mobile app, buy it, license it, display it, push it to the screen, all of that sort of integrated and tied together. You can also display price information, descriptions. You can put QR codes in there through the system as well. And so that basically if you're sort of promoting the NFT and you want to sell, sort of copies of that or whatever, you can do that as well through this content management system, essentially, which is built into the app platform. So yeah, I think it's kind of interesting. Obviously, there's a lot going on in the NFT space right now, but finding a way to sort of bridge the gap between what's happening in sort of the meta world and bringing that sort of into the physical space environment, into retail spaces, I think is really cool. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think everybody's trying to have like us play in the NFT space right now. It's new, it's a buzzword. What is the longevity for this? It doesn't work across every single industry and every single, um, you know, consumer experience or product. I'm not sure. I do think that when it comes to like an art gallery or, being able to purchase something, it makes a lot of sense there. But I think we're just scratching the surface, and we're going to see a ton of companies try to get into the NFT space in some way, shape, or form. And then probably over the next several years, we're going to see that filter out and see like what sticks, what actually is adopted. How do we adopt it as consumers? How are we seeing this like longevity in terms of the revenue that NFTs can provide? So I don't know. I mean, I'm not like super excited about it. I think it's interesting. Samsung obviously announced this year at CES that they will be having NFT enablement on their televisions. So, everybody's trying to get a piece of the pie here. And, this is just another play from my perspective. So nothing groundbreaking or super exciting yet, but definitely an industry we want to keep an eye on. I'm sure we'll be talking about a lot throughout the rest of the year.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you. I think like we're early days, right? Like everybody's trying to figure out, what is their strategy around NFTs and the metaverse and all of that. And do they need one? Do they, or not? It is still a question for a lot of, brands that I talk to and agencies that I've been, interfacing with lately. So we'll see, but definitely, I think you're right. I mean, we're going to be talking about NFTs all year long, into next year too, and on. So it's definitely a part of the the what's happening right now, and we need to kind of stay on top of it. So yeah. So that's it. That's our show for this week. 4 stories in there. You've been listening and watching episode number 563 of Location Weekly. We thank you so much for your time. And please reach out if you have story ideas or feedback. We'd love to hear about it. We'll see you next week with another show. Bye, everyone.
Bye.